Good morning, everybody. Welcome to True Crime with the Sarge, your segment called Roll Call. I got a new banner thanks to Stevie Irwin. He made it up for me last night. He just banged it out quick. So I'm digging the colors. Anyway, welcome to the morning edition of Roll Call, where we're going to talk about the cases that you guys are following. I have a couple of guests lined up. Mike is already here. Lisa will probably be joining us a little later. But just to go through a couple of administrative things, just remember to please like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. So if you could do that, that's great. The community posts, there's lots of questions on there for the newcomers. And this actually gives me a chance to even engage with the international audience this early, right? So we have a lot of people from the UK and Germany and Wales and a couple other countries I saw. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. This Saturday, I have a show, not on Sunday, the usual time, because I became a great uncle. So I'm going to a baptism on Sunday, the 17th. So I will be doing a show on Saturday, and returning to the show will be writer-producer Josh Zeman of The Killing Season. So Josh is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about Lisk. We're going to be talking about Bitroff. We're going to be talking about all kinds of crazy stuff, and probably including the crazy story that we're going to start off with today. But without any further ado, I'm going to bring in our first guest. As you know, Detective Mike Alcazar. Retired, of course, but Mike, good to see you this early in the morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Yep. So yeah, I became a great uncle, Mike. I'm going to a baptism this Sunday. So yeah, that's the point of getting old, right? So when your brother's kids are having kids, you know you're getting old.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
thanks. Yeah, it's actually kind of exciting because I remember I had a great uncle growing up who was always with us and doing things. So it gives me the opportunity to pay that back. So we have a nice international audience this morning, Mike. So this is pretty cool. We don't really usually get that when we do the late shows, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to start off with that. So we're gonna, as we're waiting for Lisa to show up, we're going to jump into this absolute mess. Even for Long Island standards, this case is like off the charts. I mean, we just went through Lisk, right? We just went through all of that crazy stuff with Rex Sherman and all the investigation. Everybody was happy the way that was handled. And then all of a sudden we get this body parts case, and seems just things like went off the Long Island Railroad rails.
It's insane. And like people are gonna think that Long Island is the destination place for serial killers and body parts. It's just nuts. It's not like that, folks. It's Long Island is very nice, but yeah, it's definitely getting notorious for this.
Yeah, well, and therein lies the issue, right? So Long Island is pretty quiet, and so in so many aspects, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with all this craziness, and of course, you know. It's an international news story because everyone hears about it because right away everyone said Lisk, right? And I went out on YouTube and said this has nothing to do with Lisk. He's in jail, and these are fresh cases. I mean, we're talking like 24 hours old, 48 hours old, unless they let him out for lunch or something. It wasn't him.
You think these bad guys saw the list case? It's like, you know what? Maybe we could do something like that. I mean, he got away with it for over 10 years. And that's always something you got to worry about, right? Copycats, and this is definitely similar, very similar.
Well, I don't know if you agree, Mike, but I actually thought, like many people, right? We led towards the MS-13 because we've seen MS-13 gangs kill like this. So I'm leaning now towards it once we know who the victims and the suspects are, right? I'm just going to read the victims' names. Donna Connolly and Malcolm Brown are the victims, and the suspects are Stephen Brown, who is a relative of Malcolm, one of the victims, Amanda Wallace, Alexis Nieves, and Jeffrey Mackey. We're going to talk about them. They got charged with tampering with evidence and concealment of a corpse.
Yeah.
But do you think they look to stage this crime scene to make it look like an MS-13 thing because it's the same kind of areas and they're cutting up the bodies? Do you think that might have been a plan?
Yeah. Like you and Dave discussed the last time. Yeah, the cutting off the fingertips and chopping off the head. And then just sprinkling it over. I don't know, sprinkling it all over Long Island. It definitely seemed like they were staging it to throw the scent off. Like it could have been. Perhaps they were thinking, hey, maybe they can link this to Lisk, blame it on Lisk. Who knows? Who knows what they were thinking?
Yeah, no, and I mean, and when you look at it, I call it the triangle of craziness, right? So we have Amityville, Babylon, Bethpage, right? So we have all of these locations included in Bethpage State Park was a place that I've said for a long time now that they should have been looking for body parts in regard to the Lisk case, and lo and behold, we find this guy. these four doing something. But this is what I find strange. It doesn't appear as if the suspects own a vehicle, right? Because they were leaving court. I don't know if you saw this. They're leaving court and they're taking the bus home. So, and they've been walking everywhere. I think I saw you on, was it News 12, doing a show on this, right? On News 12, you were doing a commentating. But I think there's a vehicle that we're looking for too on this stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. Maybe that's the guy that did that's the main suspect, right, with the vehicle. I mean, there must be a reason why they didn't charge him with the murder, unless they're cooperating. Hopefully they are cooperating, and it leads to the main guy. I know everyone's up in arms about these guys being released, and then the governor chiming in saying maybe they should have done a better investigation and charge him with the murder, but maybe they didn't have the PC, the probable cause for that. Hochul Monday morning quarterback the DA squad and the police, but and then of course she's coming under fire for them being released on bail, but they're only playing by the playbook that she handed to them. They can only do so much. So I think things definitely have to change on that end.
Yeah, well, it kind of makes me nervous in the respect that it's become a political football, right? From the policing standpoint, we know, Mike, we don't want to have any of that political pressure or that nonsense trying to do. When you have a double homicide that's involving dismemberment and stuff like that, the last thing you need is the New York Post doing headlines and actually encouraging the fights between the District Attorney Ray Tierney and Albany with Governor Hochul, right? I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I think it just sells a lot of papers and a lot of stories, so I'm sure that's why they're doing it.
Oh yeah, God, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So the front page. But there's some things here that's interesting. Suffolk County Police put out a press release, and they named the one victim, Donna, is it Keneally, and they don't name the other victim. I found that person within 30 seconds. I reached out to Raul Catchlisk, who's actually here. We were talking on the phone, and between the two of us, we identified Malcolm Brown in the matter of seconds. Right? I mean, I don't know if that was such a good move. Like, why put out one name and not put out the other? And because you didn't have a next of kin notification, we refused to put it out there. I wasn't going to be the first one to do it because. Can you imagine being your family member and you're finding this out for some idiot on YouTube, right? That your uncle or your cousin or your brother was the one that was all chopped up on Long Island. I mean, but people did it, but that's not me. I'm not doing that. Neither would Raul. And it's just it's craziness.
Yeah, that's something that we as people on the media have to be mindful of, because proper notifications have to be made first, before you leak all this information out. But YouTubers, Instagrammers, TikTokers, they want to be the first, and hopefully it doesn't bite them in the ass, with lawsuits. So something you got to be careful with.
Even then, but I kind of put the blame squarely on the Public Information Office at Suffolk County Police Department putting out that press release with the one person's name on it, because I just think, like I said, it was just too easy to find out who this person was, and it just. And they need to be mindful of that. And that not just Suffolk. Every police department needs to be mindful of that. You have two victims, right? And you don't put out one until they both have next of kin notified. Because in New York, we had to make sure that we had a family member come down and ID the body before we ever released anything. And, and that's what's happening here on Long Island, is you have to have a family member say, yes, that's him or her.
Yeah, you need that confirmatory before you release that information. God forbid you make the wrong ID, and oh my God, that would be a crap storm. I'm not sure we can curse on the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really curse, but yeah, but here's the thing. This is actually a lesson for everybody who's watching too. So when you hear the police say they have been tentatively identified, which means they might have a driver's license on them or something else, that's only tentative. It's not official until a family member or next of kin says, yes, that's him.
Yep, 100%.
Or her. So let's break down the suspects thing. So you're thinking, as the way as I am, that there's another piece of this puzzle, right? Because they've removed all kinds of weapons and stuff. I mean, they're dragging out brown bags. And when you see brown bags come out of a crime scene, Mike, what's the first thing you think of?
Yeah, a lot of forensic evidence, blood, DNA, I heard they took down the pipes, so they were trying to wash down the blood, everything down the pipe. So definitely a lot of evidence, a lot of fingerprints, I'm sure. They tore apart that house. It's so much so they can't even live there, I don't believe anymore, right? They have to stay somewhere else. Well, it's probably still an active crime scene. So
Yes. And so for our viewers, anytime you see the police dragging out brown paper bags, it usually indicates body fluids or things that have forensic evidence on it. So that's just a clue. If you see plastic, then you can discern that it's something else. But when you see paper, you're talking forensics. So we're just gonna take a quick second. Ashley just gifted 10 memberships. My God, Ashley, thank you very much getting up first this early and being so generous. I really appreciate that. So let's get back into this investigation, Mike. Do you think that they moved too quickly to arrest these guys? You think they should
no,
have taken?
I heard some people criticize that they moved too fast to make the arrest, but I mean, you got two people dead and chopped bodies. I don't blame them for making the arrest. Maybe that's all they had. So they had to hopefully interrogate these four suspects and hopefully develop more leads to arrest everybody. And I'm guessing that's the case, that they're moving on. They haven't told us everything yet. They
Oh, no.
released these four for a reason, because they probably have more information on other suspects. So no, I think they did a good job, apprehending these four rather quickly, and then of course all the political nonsense happened after the no bail. So no, I don't think so. Do you think they moved too fast? Do you think
No.
they should just made the arrest and kept it quiet, or not release the information?
No, right now the only complaint that I have with the Suffolk is that just putting out the one victim's name and not the other one. That's the only complaint, because it's not fair to the other family. Other than that, and I don't think that was done intentionally. I think that was just an oversight. But no, they went with what they had. And in homicide investigations, you're working this concurrently with the district attorney. So they didn't just act upon themselves and say, hey, we're just going to make this arrest and not notify the district attorney. So I think, as well as you do, that there's a bigger fish to fry here. And I guess they were hoping that one would roll over on somebody else, but that still might happen.
Yeah, I thought that. What's the male victim's name? Michael?
Malcolm Brown.
Malcolm. I thought that it was funny when his family members made a statement, like something to the effect, like he wasn't the best guy.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
But he didn't deserve to be murdered. There's got to be something in his past, right? We always do a victimology. So we definitely look into his past and his associates, and that's something to take a bite out of in the investigation.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions for you, but since you brought it up, right? So the cousin, the female cousin, gave a press conference right after the court appearance and said that he wasn't basically the best guy, but he didn't deserve murder. So I don't. If I was the reporter, I would say, all right, he doesn't deserve murder. What did he deserve? Right?
Yeah.
Tell us what he deserved. So once again, I think the reporters need to, learn how to ask some better questions too, because that was, I thought, hanging curveball right there. I would have been like, whoa.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Let's get into that, because like you said, victimology, Mike. Could you explain to the audience the victimology, just in case there's somebody here that might not understand that from the investigative standpoint? Because there's lots of definitions of it, but when you say victimology, what do you mean?
It sounds like the study of a victim, but really we're looking into their past history. Any criminal complaints, any complaints against them, any complaints they lodged against somebody else, arrest history, any 911 calls to their residence or they might have placed. So anything really pretty much related mostly to police investigation, relationships, past relationships, lifestyle, pretty much everything about the person that we would want to know about that might develop leads. And I'm sure the cousin making that statement, that's a great place to start to interview those, family members to find out what was he into. Was he into drugs? Did he owe money? Did he have an ex-wife that was, anything, pretty much anything you can investigate.
So Dizzy has a good question, because it was actually one of the things I wanted to get into, but since Dizzy brought it up, let's talk about it. What do you think about the speculation on the motive, right? We've heard lots of different motives, including love triangles, including financial things, right? Well, listen, love, money, and drugs, right? I call it the homicide triangle. Those are the three things that the cops always look at. What do you think about some of these stories out there?
I heard him suggest that there's some kind of a love triangle. So that wasn't the first thing I thought. The first thing I thought was, I don't know, maybe because I'm a little bit skeptical. I thought it was drugs right away. I thought, because from you came from Yonkers all the way to Long Island, so I'm thinking drugs and money for
Yeah.
sure. But then they mentioned the love triangle, and it's a love triangle between the cousins. It's like that's kind of odd. But who knows? Maybe there's some meat to that.
Well, literally, right. The issue that comes down to it though is like, so let's take a look at the love triangle kind of thing, like you said. All right, they come from Yonkers, and listen, folks, they have all the cell phone records, they have all of the internet records, they have all the text messages and phone calls and everything else that goes along with it. The police know exactly what happened here. All right. They know, hey, listen, come down, whatever, we gotta talk about this or whatever's going on. Maybe they're using code words, but believe me, they have all that stuff. We, the public, have nothing. And that's what often leads to the speculation and stuff like that. But somewhere, somehow, somebody floated the the love triangle thing, which I'm not buying because you got 6 people involved in this. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. What's that in the background? Is that your fire alarm going off? I hear something beeping.
Oh, no, I don't know. Maybe it's me tapping. My hands are always doing something.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested to see what they reveal with this love triangle. I'm definitely curious what happened. I mean, was the female victim having an affair with the cousin, and then this guy confronted him, and who knows? But just chopping the bodies, it's weird. It's definitely unusual, an unusual occurrence, we should
Yes.
say.
Yeah, CH right. A love octagon. Yeah, that would be a new one. Jersey Jen just entered the story. Hey, Jersey, I hope you're doing well. I know you're going through some tough times over there. Thanks for coming today. So with all we know that right now, what do you think the police are doing? What do you think their steps? We don't know for sure, but what would Mike Alcazar, detective, do? What be
So
doing?
they gathered all that evidence. I'm sure they're checking for other possible DNA outside of the 4 and the 2 victims in the DNA. They're definitely doing that analysis. So hopefully they can link that to some outside suspect. I would think they're canvassing for more video always, right?
Mhm.
Canvassing for more video. We can never make the crime scene big enough. So I'm sure they're canvassing wider. And any other cell phone activity, I'm sure they already opened up a Crime Stoppers tip line. So that's always helpful when people call in information. And especially after that news conference, I'm sure they got a flood of calls, especially with the statement by the family. And now they've been identified. So I'm sure they get flooded with all kinds of information, possibly leading to the victimology of the 2 victims. Um, yeah, I think that's it. That's a lot right there to begin with, to start with. Again, paying the cell phones, electronic, maybe cell phone devices, going through the cell phone. We've seen recently how it's important to go through personal devices, right? So whatever they go through and the history of the victims, any kind of exchanges on cell, computer, that's always fruitful. So I'm pretty sure that's where they're off to start.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to get through that data, and the data doesn't come automatically, right? So there's no emergency anymore. They have, they know who the victims are. I don't think there are any other victims. They know who at least 4 of the suspects are, maybe more. So I don't think it's it's an emergency thing. So they're going to have to wait now from the phone carriers, and we know they have phones because right out of court they're on the phones doing the stuff. So I was watching that. I mean, all that stuff is being watched. I can guarantee you for sure. And I know you had mentioned that maybe there's even some surveillance going on. You said that
Yeah,
on News
I
12.
was gonna think about. I was thinking about that. Do you think that they're? I said they're definitely surveilling them. You're not letting these 4 people out and then just letting them loose and nobody's watching these people. God forbid they try to escape. I mentioned it in the interview. They didn't air it. We had that issue with Brian Laundrie, right? They released him and then they didn't follow him. And the next thing you know, he commits suicide in some park. I think they dropped the ball in Florida, and I don't think Long Island wants to do the same thing.
Yep, and I agree. Yeah, Mike and I do a lot of TV stuff, and we always I always say they always drop the best quotes. They always put in something else.
100%.
They always leave out the most important information. Like for me, that would have been like, yeah, we got to make sure that they're doing this, because I think two of them still have the ankle monitor and two of them don't. So there's two of them. So which also indicates who the district attorney thinks is the bigger threat here in regards to either fleeing or a big part of the case.
Oh, for sure, for sure. One of the questions that the reporter had for me, which didn't air, was, are these ankle monitors tamper-proof? And I'm pretty sure you can, if you're really desperate, you can just snap them off. I heard the batteries die all the time. I heard sometimes the signals don't work. So it's not something I would rely on in a homicide case. I would rather keep him in jail or prison until we do the trial than to rely on technology, because everybody's pretty tech savvy, and someone could definitely tamper with this monitor, and then hopefully these guys don't disappear in the wind, and now we got to go through like a hunt, right? A manhunt for them.
Well, yeah, and God forbid you have to do that, right? Because think about the personnel that you have to do now to try to track this guy down, and the money to spend to do so. People would start asking lots of questions. So yeah, they're keeping an eye on him. And like I said, apparently it doesn't seem that there's a vehicle involved in this, so they're taking the buffs everywhere. So
isn't that weird? That's so odd.
Yeah, it's weird. In the respect that you kind of say, like, did the police take the car, right? Suffolk is historically closed-ended when it comes to their investigations. They are not forthcoming, so I wouldn't read anything into this, like, oh, the police, but because they've done this before. And actually, I think when I did an interview on this case, I said, listen, Suffolk, this is the way they operate. You won't hear anything for 2 days, and then all of a sudden they pull the rabbit out of the hat, and that's exactly what happened here. And that's just the way they operate. It's very, very closed and something that we're not used to, because New York City is still pretty open. They have a press conference right away when something big happens, and Suffolk, they don't do that. They don't play that way.
This is actually the most, speaking of New York City, the NYPD, this is actually the most I've seen them open, right? In the Ray Kelly era, you didn't hear anything. Only the commissioner spoke, but now everybody's speaking. Detectives, sergeant, lieutenants, commissioners. It's insane how open they are right now. So, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. They might fall under more criticism because they're releasing information before maybe a case is resolved. It's definitely a different strategy for them.
Well, yeah, two things come to mind, right? The first thing is that, yes, I like the transparency, and I think that's good. The second thing that comes to mind is that if you have a lower ranking member who makes a mistake and says something, you can always correct it, right? So when you see some of these situations that happened all over the place, when the chief himself or herself says something and it's wrong, there's no one to correct them.
Yeah.
And it looks bad, right? So if you have the lieutenant say something, and you can always say, well, I'm the captain, whatever, we got more information, that wasn't, and people are like, oh, okay, all right, it's a higher ranking person, they're correcting this person, even though it's not, but the public thinks that. But I think that's an important thing. I like the transparency, but yeah, I worry about releasing too much information for an investigation that can actually hurt it. But yeah, Ray Kelly's administration, I used to call it the Iron Curtain. It was like the former Soviet Union. Nobody talked, nobody knew anything, nobody did anything. And Mike, we're old timers too, so we don't like change in so many aspects. So we're kind of stuck in our ways, but I think it's good.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, Jersey Jen says, Sergeant Mike, are so good together. Thank you, Jersey. Yeah, love the accents.
Oh, she's from Jersey. She has to have an accent, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm talking about Cake Sparrow from it looks like Australia.
Oh, what accent?
Yeah. Hey, yo, wait, what are you doing over there? Right? I mean, it's.
So she's from Australia, you said?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the flag from Australia.
I love that accent. I love it.
Yeah.
I think we love all accents outside of our own, because we don't think we have an accent.
Exactly, we don't. And actually, Raul just chimed in. What accents? We don't have any.
There you go, Raul.
So yeah, this whole Suffolk thing is just now. Here's the other interesting part, and I was hoping that Lisa, something must have happened with work, but Lisa and I were digging into the lawyers. So here's the interesting thing: three of them, I'm not going to name names because I don't want people going crazy on this thing, but three of them have, excuse me, court-appointed lawyers, and one of them has a family attorney that is, somebody's paying for it. They have a regular attorney, not a public defender. So that's
Hmm.
another interesting little tidbit out there. Scott showing up this morning. Hello, Scott. Good to see you.
What up, Scott?
So yeah, do you read it? Do you read anything into that? Somebody having a Scott says he wants his 28 for 30 minutes. 28 is the form when you're either late or lost time or you're taking vacation. You're filling out, and you got it, Scott. Do you read anything into like, first of all, these suspects don't look like they have a lot.
Money?
Yeah. Okay. So now
No,
all of a sudden, one of them has a
no,
a
I
private
didn't read
attorney.
too much. I didn't read too much into that. I mean, maybe somebody in our family offered to use their real estate lawyer or something. I'm not looking into it too much. It's not unusual that a family member might have a lawyer on retainer. I mean, could they have a sword and pass, and they had an attorney used in past, I don't know, past law cases possibly, but I don't. No, not too much into it. What about you?
I just thought it was odd, right? I mean, this whole case is odd, right? This whole thing is just like off the charts crazy. Like I said, even for Long Island standards, you know. So we're about halfway through it. If you're just joining us now, we're up to 117 people here for a roll call. So this is my new morning show. We're going to be doing it at least one time a week. But if crowds like this keep on showing up, there might be more. I just have to figure out who else is an early riser. Can't be using poor Mike every time. He's got other things to do. So. But yeah, so if you're just joining us now, we're discussing the Long Island body parts case. We have a couple other things on the docket, so to speak, and we're having our coffee too. I hope you guys are enjoying your morning as well with us. Yeah, so Christine Brennan was saying, criminal lawyers cost big money. Yeah, so it's like, where's the money coming from? Which, could be another indication that there's something else afoot that we are unaware of. So, it
There's
is what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. I think mostly everybody's like wondering, right? How did these guys get released? What information did they have or they didn't have? I mean, these people allegedly chopped up these bodies and tampered with it and scattered it in these parks, and yet they released them. They have to have more. I would like to think they must be close to making an arrest. I hate to make predictions, but I bet you they're going to make an arrest, an apprehension really soon.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to double down with you. Like I said, this is the way Suffolk operates. When you think all is lost, all of a sudden something just like ta-da. And I know people say, "Well, what about Lisk? Lisk was a disaster. Lisk was a whole other different kind of situation. Different people involved. Different. We know about all the corruption out there between Burke and Spota. So you can't conflate the two, right? So there's new people in charge. There's new things going on.
Yeah, different administration, different staff. I think the police there are newly motivated, with the arrests and lists. So I think they're good. They're metal. What is it? Metal to the metal. Pedal to the metal. Pedal.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's good morning.
I would say Suffolk has a new confidence, and I would definitely say that, because listen, the morale. I mean, I've talked to people, whatever. Things were pretty bleak over in Suffolk, with all the stuff going on. Because once again, the cops, the lowest members of the entire department, the ones that get beat up for everything, right? But meanwhile, you had all this corruption scandal going on at the highest levels of the criminal justice system, and who's getting beat up for it? The cops, right? So it's always the way that the poop runs downhill, and it's just the way it goes. But I think there's a newfound confidence out there.
I was if you saw my interview last night, right? I love the Long Islanders. Did you see the clips of them when they were being interviewed? They weren't even concerned. They were like, the reporter was asking them if they were afraid that they released these four. They were just more outraged that they were out there. And with their thick Long Island accent, nothing's going to happen to me, but they were just really upset. It's like, I love Long Islanders. They're so awesome and brave and tough.
That was the one with the two like older women that were doing.
Oh yeah. I was, and the guy. Did you see the old timer? It's
No, I didn't see
coming
it.
to you. I'm like, whoa, that guy was like Joe Pesci.
Yeah, I saw the one with the two older women, and she's like, "Are you
Yeah,
afraid?" She's like, "No, but this is ridiculous."
yeah,
She's doing the head thing and everything else going on. So
yeah.
it was actually kind of funny. Yeah. So Scott says, Sergeant Mike, I'm going to with two overdosed and panicked and didn't want to get evicted. They got rid of the evidence, but cameras are everywhere. That's another theory that especially now with all the fentanyl craziness going on, we haven't heard anything about toxicology reports either.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. But why chop up the bodies? Really? You're going to go through that extent for an OD? That's
Well,
insane. I mean,
well,
Scott be dead on. Scott could be dead on.
right,
Could be dead
but
on.
it's something I never thought of. But yeah, Scott brings up a great point. But the whole thing about, once again, like they panic and then they go, "Hey, MS-13 does this. Maybe we can just throw it out there and make it look like that. We'll scatter it around and make it look like a gang hit." And all the political stuff that was going on between the immigration stuff and the new Venezuelan gangs and everything else that's going on. So it might have been that kind of thing, a moment of lucidity, saying, "Hey, this is what we can do." I know. Sometimes we think that the bad guys are always stupid, but sometimes they're not, right? Sometimes they are. They do think of some things that most people don't. That's what makes them criminals, right? So that's the whole thing. So yeah, Scott, that's actually
That
an
is
interesting.
that is really good. I like that. They died. They OD'd, they died, and we had to chop up the bodies and get rid of them.
Raul
Possibly.
goes, Raul, those four don't look that smart. We're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, Raul. But yeah, I mean, but here's the other thing, right? You do all of this effort to cut up the bodies, cut the fingers off, and you leave an entire arm with all the tattoos on it, with the name on it, and you leave it in public view so that kids on the way to school can find it, right? So they didn't think all of this through. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do like Scott's theory. That's definitely plausible.
Well, we have seen that many times, right? Where, these kids, they have the party, the drug overdose, they throw the body out with the trash because they don't know what to do. They think they're going to get in trouble. They're all going to get arrested, and that's when that whole unlawful disposing of a body, a B, it's an E felony, which is just a little bit above getting a traffic summons. That's basically what we're talking about here.
So, so it'll be interesting to see if they had any Google searches before they did this. So, like, it seems like everyone's going. All these bad guys are doing Google searches. Google is not your friend.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, right? Because like I said, all we know, we don't even know how they came on top of these guys, right? There's no even indication saying we tracked them via cell phone. I think they did with the cell phone stuff because they found out who these victims were really early on. They knew exactly who, what do you call it? Jay just entered the chat. Google the 21st century snitch. Yep, it's absolutely. We were joking last night. I had Sonny Slaughter on, and I was like, "Could you imagine when they take a look at our Google searches and see what they find out on that stuff, and that kind of thing." So yeah, so Lisa, just yeah, she's not gonna be able to make it. She's got caught up with stuff, so it's just gonna be you and me, Mike. We're gonna be taking this to the finish line. So yeah, anything else on the Long Island case before we do a little switch over?
No, I think it's gonna be revealed pretty quick, and it's gonna in a few days we're gonna hopefully we have a nice resolution to this crime.
Yep, I agree, and I think maybe, like I said, even by the end of this weekend, that's what I'm planning on. Hopefully, reading a big article about this on the Sunday Newsday, and then doing all that, having my coffee with that. So I think that'll be good. Actually, Sunday I won't be able to do. I'll be going to a baptism. But
Hey, if Scott gets it right, we might have to have him on the show.
Scott's always invited, so if Scott wants to come on, he's always invited to come on. And then, all right, so let's switch gears. So unless there's something else that you wanted to say about the Long Island cases, I think we kind of beat that to death, cut it up
Yeah,
to
half the
pieces.
show, right?
Yep, just about. Yeah, we just passed a little bit past the halfway mark. I tell you, one thing I love doing about these shows and talking to people, the time just goes by so quick. It's like you're having a conversation, and then boom, you look up and it's 35 minutes into this thing. So it's so let's to cover everything that we promised. So let's switch a little bit. I want to turn our attention to Florida in the Madeline Soto case. All right, absolutely awful. Everyone, if you don't know about the Madeline Soto case, this is the young 13-year-old who disappeared after her birthday. They found her remains, and then they arrested I'm not even going to mention his name, right? We don't even want to give him any more publicity than he already has. And then initially they found some disturbing pictures that had to deal with exploitation of children. Let's just call it that way, because I know YouTube gets very upset when you start mentioning the other words in regards to children and certain aspects of it. So we're going to try to keep that under wraps. However, they just dropped another 60 charges on him last night for more. So, and if you read the affidavit, I don't know if you got a chance to read it, but they blocked them in things of 10. So they had 10 images, 10 images, and they did that like 6 or 7 times. So we're looking at 600 or 700 images. Now, the victim's name was redacted because that's the law, right? You can't give out the identity of a victim of an assault like this. Mike, we're looking at 700, and probably all the same victim. So I guess we can all assume that who that victim is, but I think they're only scratching the surface with this guy.
Yeah. When I saw that guy do the press conference and he's all teary-eyed, I immediately suspected that piece of crap. That guy is an animal, and I hate to say it, I wasn't surprised when they revealed it. Whenever there's like a male dropping off a kid to school and she disappears, you're suspect number one. That guy is a psychopath and a pedophile. We're not going to name him, like you said. What a piece of crap. Oh my God, I hope he gets everything he deserves in jail. But like you said, and I'm sure your audience is thinking the same thing, this might have been 2 years or more of abuse. How does a mother not know this is going on? She's definitely going to be investigated too. That's crazy.
Yeah, no. So Kay just puts this, Joe, why no one for the unaliving charge yet. Kay, he's not going anywhere right now. So they have him for 60 or 70 felonies just from yesterday alone. So this is Florida too. There's going to be no bail. There's going to be no shenanigans with that. There's no way he's getting out. So they have the time to investigate this properly without having to rush it. And remember now, they have to get a warrant and a search for each one of the apps on his phone, his tablets, his home computers. There's going to be a tremendous amount of electronic evidence they have to find. So they're going to take it slow. And I know people want this murder charge right now on him. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I think they just want to make sure they dot their I's and cross off their T's before they drop this charge. But 100%, I think it's coming really soon. They're just, finishing their investigation to the best of their ability and charge this piece of crap. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's some other disturbing things about this guy, right? Allegedly, he worked at Disney, once again around kids, and that's another thing. But I have been surprised, and I was on Law and Crime Network last night, and I said, publicly for the first time. I've said this in lots of different, YouTube shows. I don't say this is public too, but when you're on the news media and you say something, that's when they would consider that public. But I said, like, I expected law enforcement to make a public statement saying, listen, if you have had a relationship with this man and you have children around that 9 to 13-year age, we need to talk to you. I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing. There might be other victims out there. I understand some families might be hesitant because they don't need to re-traumatize their children if they had any contact with this animal. So, but it's important. It's really important. I mean, this guy could have been a pattern sex abuser. So,
right.
Oh God, it makes my blood boil just thinking of his face right now.
Well, the deal is that's why I'm not putting pictures of him up there. Whatever, we're not going to give him his notoriety for this for sure. But the issue that comes down to is, not so much even for the criminal charges, because like I said, he isn't going anywhere. But for the potential of other victims out there, I think is high, and they need to get not only medical attention, but they need to get some psychological and counseling too. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist in any general way, but Mike and I, we've dealt with children cases. These kids need help.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the poor victim, Madeline, so sad for that kid, what she went through. It's just really, really heartbreaking. This Oh God, I keep calling him an animal. This guy's the
Yeah, well,
devil,
he
you know.
is. He is. But actually, I said, I mean, when I was going through the charges yesterday, I've also noticed too that they had time frames on this. So, and I could be wrong. I could have read it wrong because math is not my best subject. But to me, these charges, these videos or photos, whatever they are, go back at least 4 years.
Oh God.
So, yeah. So I know originally they said this has been going on for 2 years. I'm telling everybody right now, it's 4 years or a little bit less than 4 years. So he could have possibly been abusing this kid as late as 8 and 9.
Oh my God.
This has been going on for a long time, folks. And I want you guys to fact check me on this. For those of you that find the affidavit that was posted yesterday, read through all those charges and see if you think I am kind of accurate with the time frame, because they talk about charges of less than 11 and everything. So originally they said 2 years, right? So 13 to 11 is 2 years. So now we're talking about 10, and but this list goes on. So somebody uh, do that. So I don't mind if I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I don't really care on that respect, because I come from the school where everybody who's working on these things have the time to go through it. So I kind of read it pretty quickly. But yeah, Mike, this is the police did a great job. I mean, Mike, the last person you're seen with is always your focus.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I
And
mean, they did their proper investigation. They readily got some evidence right off this phone. Good job on them. And again, they're gonna do a victimology. Any other complaints in the past at that residence? Any complaints lodged by the mom, who I still think is a little bit suspect. How could you not know what's going on in your household, especially if it's been going on for 4 years? Did this child say anything to her? Oh yeah, this poor kid. I wish this guy could be tried in another country and they'd just do away with him. It's over, no trial.
yeah, unfortunately, he's gonna, still Florida. He's still facing. I think he'll still face the death penalty on this
Good.
the charges start mounting up. Yeah, I don't. And did you notice when they were going to when he had his arraignment, and the judge was gonna start reading the charges, his attorney jumped right in and said, "Oh, we're gonna waive the reading of the charges." Did you catch that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it
gee, I
would
wonder why.
it wouldn't look good. Like it would be like an hour or so of like charges, you know.
And people are listening on the inside. People are listening. I mean, listen, everyone already knows who this guy is. The inside crew already knows. I mean, we're talking about the general population already knows what this guy's being charged with.
Yeah,
Um,
they're probably chomping at the bit.
well, and the other thing is too, like sometimes they do wait till there's a trial too and a conviction. Sometimes they don't, act right away too, because people like street justice kind of thing. Listen, we don't. You gotta remember when that happens in corrections, everyone gets in trouble too, right? So they start with the warden and oop, I lost you for a second there. They start with the warden and there's an investigation, so we don't want to see that happen, so to speak. Because
Yeah,
look what happened with the Epstein case, right? Everybody went crazy, and
yeah,
people lost their jobs and stuff like that going on the thing too.
true. Yeah,
But yeah, I know a lot of people are focused on the mom. Listen, we know that there's inconsistencies in her story. Um, and I don't think you're going to see her. I said this on crime. I don't think you'll ever see her talk to the media again unless her lawyer is present. But if the,
I mean,
I try to tell
is it
people,
possible her recollection was off? I'll play devil's advocate. Maybe
trauma.
maybe she kisses her every day and she's just misremembered that and she said that.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's
Well,
possible.
you could always blame trauma. You could always blame psychological. Because you saw the video where she's doing the interview with the news, and he walks in on the video as it's going live and sits behind her. I mean, that is some psychotic behavior where there's a lot of control going on there. So
100%. Yeah, she could very well be a victim and is afraid. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
yeah. So listen, if the police find evidence that she's involved in any way, believe me, they're not going to treat her with kid gloves. It's not going to happen. She's going to go to jail if that's the case. But I always tell people, just be patient and try not to make other people's lives totally miserable too, who may not be involved in something. I mean, some of the things that I've seen and heard from on YouTube about this woman, boy, if they're wrong, there's going to be some reckoning for some people. But you have to be careful, and you have to just understand that there are people going through things and handle things differently too. And it's not an excuse. It's just the way it goes.
For sure. There's definitely that possibility.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all could all agree that there could have been things that maybe she could have done, right? But unless we're put in that position, we don't know for sure. And like I said, we don't that story. We only know like this much about what the police know because, like I said, they dumped that affidavit yesterday, that probable cause affidavit, boy, and I think they opened up a lot of eyes in regards to how bad this guy really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, is there anything else on that Madeline Soto case before we go
No,
on?
it just
Jump on to the
makes
next one.
my blood boil. It just keeps
Yeah, this
so
poor kid.
angry. I think people see the switch from the first story, which is still homicide, to this, and the seriousness and in our faces. We get
Well,
angry. So
well, crimes against children and crimes against the elderly are always the toughest, right? Because they're the ones that are most vulnerable in society, and we need to protect them at all costs. And and some of the other stuff that Mike and I have dealt with, is victim precipitated for sure. In this case, not even a chance. So, not even a chance. This poor kid lived a terrible life over the last few years, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
yeah, it's very tragic.
So let's roll into this missing persons case out of Tennessee, Sebastian Rogers. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this case. I started looking into it. So he's a 15-year-old from Tennessee. He's autistic, and one day he just disappears. And I think the police have done a pretty good job about this investigation so far. And you know, do you remember, Mike, in New York City when that there was an autistic kid that left school? He left the
Yeah,
school in the middle of the
yeah,
thing, yeah, and they found him, unfortunately, in the water. Right, that's the first thing I
yes.
thought of because we've learned, in law enforcement, when all these things come up, they learned, that kids with autism tend to get attracted to the water, and so they drained a swamp next to his house or near his house. Hold on one second. Cakes Boo, thank you very much for that super sticker. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So yeah, they drained the swamp. They went to a landfill. They did all this stuff, and the police were pretty good with it. They said, "Listen, we have no information or indication that there's any foul play or anything like that. We're just doing, our steps because basically they said we don't want to be questioned later on. Like, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that?"
God forbid.
So,
Yeah.
so what do you think? I mean, you and I've done missing persons cases. Um, we have hammered into our heads. You start with the person where they were last seen, their residence, whatever it may be, and they've now searched that house on several occasions. Looking for evidence in there. They brought out cadaver dogs. The police have really done a lot, and they've now
Um,
scaled this back.
and I'm sure they checked nearby residences. I would hope they went door to door to other homes. God forbid somebody kidnapped this kid, right? I'm sure they did that also. That's another step in the
Mhm.
process. Yeah, it sure seems like they did their due diligence, trying to do their best to find this kid. It's definitely odd. The detective in me is definitely suspecting family members too. You can't rule that out of foul
Never.
play. There's a stepfather, there's a father. Um, it's just odd that this kid just disappeared. How far could he have gone? It's without being perhaps taken. So that's definitely something I've thought about.
Yeah, no. In respect of the police are going to treat this as a missing persons investigation. Is there always an eye open for a criminal investigation? I always say yes. I try to tell the people that all the time, you know. But this is also one of the things, Mike, that I'm starting to talk to some politicians in regards to cases just like this, where when they have a situation where somebody is missing and there might be some indication that it was um, not of their own voluntary disappearance kind of thing. And I don't know if that's what happens here or not, but still bringing in, and you tell me what you think from your professional opinion. My thing is, on cases such like this when you have young kids specifically, or you have an adult that disappears under questionable circumstances, that a homicide investigator or a detective who has homicide experience be brought into the investigation at the early stages, because unfortunately this is the way they end up turning out anyway down the road. What do you think about that as
Yeah,
a
I think that's
mandatory thing?
yeah, I think that's good practice because they have all that experience. It treated like a homicide right from the beginning, and maybe you'll be able to solve it quicker and get more information, to help solve it. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. And not now we have the luxury in the NYPD when we do investigations like this, where detectives that might work for missing persons have also investigated homicide scenes. So not all municipalities have that with their police departments. So yeah, absolutely. Bring in somebody that can assist in a case like this, perhaps the FBI or state
Yeah.
police that can definitely assist.
And I'm not saying that this Sebastian Rogers case is a homicide investigation. I'm not saying that because we don't know. But what I'm saying is having that expert skill of investigating things such as this. Because remember, homicide detectives or detectives that have a lot of homicide experience have all of the skills necessary to solve the crimes that are below them, right? So that's why we train detectives in New York City Police Department at the homicide class. We send people, even though they might not ever get a homicide case, we send them to homicide school because you learn all the tools of the trade there that you can apply to other cases like missing persons or a grand larceny or a robbery. Right? I mean, that's been the thinking, and Mike and I have been part of that, right? So we've helped develop that training in New York City over the years too.
And the likelihood, I want to add, that an NYPD officer doesn't ever get a homicide is slim to none, because pretty much every police officer will respond to a homicide scene. They might not investigate it, but they might be the first responding officer, and the experience and training they get is invaluable.
Yeah, well, and think about this. I saw a statistic. I don't know how accurate or true it is, but they said a police officer with 20 years experience will go through about 700 critical incidents in their career, and the average person will go through about 2 critical incidents in their career, meaning non-police officers. And I said, okay, like Mike and I were cops. Mike was in the late 80s. I started in 1992. I think we had more than 700 the first like 2 years of critical incidents, during that time frame. I mean, we're talking about 2,400 homicides and everything else that goes along with it.
It's crazy if, we've seen so much, we forget more than, most people experience. My first homicide was when I was a rookie. I was a rookie in the 8-3, and it's crazy. Yeah, in Bushwick, yes, insane.
Yeah, that's where my wife was born and raised, and she lived there until she was like 20-something years old. But yeah, no. So like I said, we don't know how this investigation is going to go with Sebastian Rogers, but we're just trying to, prevent other cases in the future in regards to this. And I said, I think having that expert knowledge up front in some of these investigations. So I'm talking to some politicians in regard to this to see if you can do things at the state level or at least at the local level where you can do this, because maybe a case like this gets resolved quicker, right? Because the idea is to get this kid home safe, right? And to be able to do this. But now, unfortunately, right before we got on, I read that the authorities now, the law enforcement, has scaled back the search for him, and now they're relying on the public, so to speak, right? So they're posting posters and billboards, I guess, will be next, and those kind of things to keep this case in the media. And that's one of the other reasons why I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that they've stopped the investigation, but I think they feel like they've done everything they could with the information they have right now. So, and again, hopefully somebody will come up with some information to help to find him.
Yeah, and that's basically the idea behind this, right? To get these kids, in this case Sebastian, right? Find these kids and bring them home safely. There is something I always want to try to. Since we're talking about missing persons, Mike, I've heard or asked a lot of times is like, do I have to wait 48 hours to report my kid missing? Absolutely not. When there's something that you think is wrong, every second and every minute counts.
Yeah, that's TV, folks. Yeah, you don't have to wait. The police will take that report, will do that investigation. Don't let any police officer tell you that you have to wait 48 hours. That's nonsense.
Yes.
If it's somebody, it's like a special category, meaning there's some kind of mental or physical disability, if they're elderly, you
Medication.
can report that immediately. You don't have to wait 48 hours. Don't be afraid to notify the police.
Right. And if you're not getting what you want, or you're getting blown off, ask to speak to the supervisor, because this is something, I know people say go Karen mode. This is your kid. You do everything you can in order to get somebody's attention. I don't care whose head you have to go over. The squeaky wheel will get the grease for sure. And I think most cops out there understand this, especially. So, Mike, you mentioned special category, right? So you have somebody with special needs, an involuntary disappearance. You have a video of somebody being abducted, right? So there's no question about that. But also, you remember, medication is a big one too.
Yep.
Some people who need their medication and all of a sudden they disappear and they left their medication at home. This
Yep.
becomes a special category, and special category starts an immediate search, because the average person doesn't have like, this is what we're seeing in Tennessee. That response doesn't happen unless there's a special category, and because of this kid's age and because he has an ability, that they were actually doing the search, and this lasted for about I think February 26th is when when Sebastian disappeared. So they went a long time.
Yeah. I just saw in the news on a different case. I believe he's a 19-year-old. He just disappeared in Nashville. He was hanging out in a club, a bar, and I just came back from Nashville, and we were at this bar, and I hate to go to a different story, but this kid just disappeared. Apparently, he was intoxicated. The bouncers kicked him out, and he's gone. They don't know what happened to him. And Nashville's a big city, so that's a good example of a missing that should have been reported immediately. I don't know if they did, but because of his age, they might not have. They might have hesitated. Even the police might have hesitated. But this kid disappeared, and he's 6'7". I don't know if you're familiar with the story. This kid's like 6'7".
I heard about it.
Disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah, so you and I could get on each other's shoulders and we still wouldn't be 6'7".
No, 100%.
So yeah, I mean, no, I heard about that. He was actually one of the new bars of one of the popular country music singers, I think. Yeah, and he disappeared. But like, once again, there's a delay in the reporting, correct? Because I don't know who he lives with, or maybe a roommate reported. Do you know who reported him not coming home?
I don't know. I just saw a clip of it, but I thought it was unusual that this 6'7" kid just disappeared, and no one can find him. So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting case. Maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, maybe that could be another episode of Roll Call, right? So we're winding down to our hour already. I can't believe that thing went by so fast. We're up to 191 people. If you're just tuning in now, this is our second edition of Roll Call. With me today is retired NYPD Detective Mike Alcazar. He's a good friend of mine. I've known Mike for, I guess we're looking at 20 years plus. So which makes us old. But other than that. So final thoughts, Mike. Tell me, for those of that are just tuning in now, tell me what you think happens in the Suffolk case. Let's start with that one. Let's make your prediction again.
The Long Island case. So I think they're gonna. I'm sure they have good information right now. They're working on it. They're keeping their cards close to the vest, but I'm sure there's going to be an apprehension very soon, in the next few days. You predicted probably by this weekend. I agree. So we'll find out what happened. So that's interesting.
If you're right, promise me Monday morning we'll try to get back on here. I do have a court TV appointment, I think, on Monday, but we'll see. Maybe we can sneak one in. I'm doing court TV. I don't know if I'm doing Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. I got to start writing the schedule down. Okay, so let's.
I turned down court TV this morning. They said I can't. I got a previous appointment. I'd rather hang out with Joe and his viewers than court TV. So
well, I'll tell you something. I have had the best luck with this channel. So many people have helped me out, total strangers, right? So, Giacalone with the true crime grizzlies, they're all out there, and just I have an awesome community so far. I mean, we're closing in on 8,000 subscribers.
That's awesome.
I just kicked this thing off in August, but
that's quick.
But we have the best educated viewers too, because I give these
Yeah,
quizzes, and I'll tell you, they're knocking them out of the park. So if you're
yeah.
new to this channel, go to the communities tab and do these forensic and investigations quizzes. And I want to build the most important group out there on YouTube, because this is something where now you go to other channels and you're watching the news and you're hearing things and you go, I know that, or I heard about this, and that kind of thing. So it's important. Okay, so your prediction as well as mine is that there's an arrest again coming soon in charges on out of Long Island body parts case. Madeline Soto with this suspect. I said I'm not even going to name him. What do you think the next shoe is going to drop on that one? What do you think could be the
So
next
again,
shoe?
they're gonna be reviewing forensic evidence and hopefully develop probable cause that he did commit this homicide and charge him with that.
So Rochella Pranzo and Pete Pranzo says, it's because your informative knowledge of fair and all in 1 hour. Love it. Thank you, Rochella. Yes, we try to do and Cokesbury, not luck, Sarge, your content and guests. Yes, thank you very much. I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of friends that not only knowledgeable, but they're actually fun to talk to and that kind of thing. So it's I like the conversation. Right. So yeah, I think there will be murder charges dropped in the Florida case relatively soon. I just think that they're just going through this massive amount of electronic data. And the Sebastian Rogers case, I don't have an answer about how this is going to end up. Unfortunately, it's gone so long that I don't think this ends well. But there's always hope, right?
Yeah, hopefully. It doesn't look good. He's been gone for what, 2 weeks now. So
yeah, I think February 26th. I think it's actually more than 2 weeks now.
That's sad. That's sad I feel sad for his family members. So hopefully they get
let's hope there's a miracle. Let's hope there's a miracle.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully.
So Mike and I will be watching these cases carefully. If anything pops up, like I said, stay tuned. We might have an impromptu roll call next week. Well, there's going to be a roll call episode next week, probably be on Wednesday. But if something big this weekend happens, possibly we're going to squeeze one in the morning on a Monday. We'll see what happens. But folks, we had over 200 people watching this at one time, so I think there's a lot of people that like this time slot. I like the time slot because I'm up early anyway. But Mike, I want to thank you for your time this morning. It was great talking to you again. Everybody who donated, I really appreciate your generosity. I'm like overwhelmed by that. So thank you very much. For those that came out to watch the live and liking the show, you guys have helped me grow so fast, and I appreciate that. So Mike, just hang out 1 second. We're going to end the stream. Everybody, you have a great day and a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.